Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 156. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where all we do is talk about new movies. We give you our opinions, our thoughts, what we liked and didn't like. And then at the end of the podcast, we wrap it up by deciding after one viewing, is this film timeless? Is it something that I can see myself rewatching various different times in the future? Now, sometimes you guys will agree with me, sometimes you won't. It's all good though. Let's have some good discussion. Let's build a community talking about all the things that we love about movies. And so, how we build that? Well, you can follow me on social media like Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. On all those platforms, you can search up Timeless Movie Podcast and you'll find the channel there. That way, you can always interact with me and also be on the lookout for new episodes. Also, timelessmoviepod@gmail.com. That's the email here. Send us an email. Would love to hear you guys' questions, thoughts, opinions, feedback about any of the episodes. Let me know. I'll read those on these podcast episodes. That way, maybe some good stuff, some bad stuff, whatever. I'll read them. Also, little housekeeping. Episode 155 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is out on all platforms where you listen to podcasts like Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Check it out. Me and my brother Omar ended up talking about the new film from Disney, Tron Ares. You're going to hear the same stuff if you listen to other podcasters talk about movies, but the visuals are amazing. The music is incredible, but is the film actually good? Well, check out episode 155. That way you can listen to me and my brother's thoughts and agree or disagree on whether we thought this film was timeless. All right, let's go ahead now and move into the good stuff. Let's move into this week's movie in which we are talking about the new film from Paramount, and it is called Roofman. Roofman stars Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, Peter Dinklage, Lakeith Stanfield, Juno Temple, and many other actors as well, and it is directed by Derek Cianfrance. Now, I saw a trailer for this a couple months ago, and immediately, again, got my attention, and this is one of the bigger reasons why I wanted to watch this movie is because it's based on a true story, but I always am interested, okay, is this actually loosely based on a true story, or is it actually something that went down and it actually happened, at some point in time? And yeah, the things that they were showing in the trailer just all seemed really wacky and funny, and so I really wanted to check it out. And also, I'm a really big fan of Channing Tatum and Kirsten Dunst. Always want to give them really the support that I can to watch their movies. Channing Tatum I've always really enjoyed from, the 21 and 22 Jump Street films and other things as well. And obviously, Kirsten Dunst, since I was a kid, knowing her as MJ from Spider-Man. And so always wanted to support their work in regards to the films that they're coming out with. Now, let's go ahead and jump into some non-spoiler thoughts. That way I can kind of give you a little bit more sense as to what I thought about Roofman. All right, Roofman is directed by Derek Cianfrance. If you are not aware of his work, he actually filmed 2 previous films in the 2010s. One of them was The Place Beyond the Pines, and the other one was Blue Valentine. And so again, he's made different types of films. I think he hasn't made a film, I want to say, in maybe over 5 years, but he is back now with Roofman. And like I mentioned before, Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, a lot of different types of actors coming out in this movie. And it's, again, based on a true story. Kind of takes place, I want to say, in the 2000s to 2004 range, I want to say. But what is Roofman about? Well, it is based on the story of Jeffrey Manchester, a man from North Carolina. He was a former I believe a Marine or in the Army, and he was discharged, and he lives with his family. He's trying to do his best in order to provide for his children. I believe with his first wife, he had a daughter and twin boys. And so you start noticing right from the beginning that Jeffrey just has a hard life. He is a smart guy, but he doesn't use his skills to the best of his abilities. And then one birthday, he does not deliver or just doesn't give a memorable moment for his daughter. And so what does he do? He ends up going on a specific spree of McDonald's and actually notices different details after he observes the workers and observes what happens, the routines. And throughout a full year, he ends up stealing money from the safes of 40 to 45 different McDonald's. And he uses that money to essentially try to give his daughter the best birthday that he can. But what ends up happening on that birthday is he ends up getting caught by the police. They found his tracks, they found the trails, they go to his house, and they end up arresting him. And so what you notice about Jeffrey is that again he's very skilled, he's very observant, and so he ends up escaping from prison and hiding in a Toys R Us roof. So that's where I'll leave it off. Again, that's essentially what the trailer shows. There's a lot more funny, emotional, and chaotic things that happen after he escapes prison and stays at a Toys R Us. But again, I don't want to spoil that too much. Overall, after leaving the theaters and watching Roofman, I gotta say that I thought this movie was great. I was really surprised. I did not expect to enjoy this movie as much. I will say that for me, and this is something that I've always kind of talked about with my brother outside of the podcast, is when it comes to based on true stories, they can only go so far, right? Like the stories has to be either way outside the box or just something that you just can't believe. But most of the times they're pretty entertaining, they're fun, or you learn something about them. But either they kind of just fizzle out. At least for me, in my opinion. Roofman, I don't know. It had an energy about it. There was just so much things that I could connect with, especially from Jeffrey Manchester, the actual person. There's so many things that he goes through, and you could tell that he's not a bad guy. He's trying to be a good guy. He's trying to help the people around him. It's just the decisions he makes aren't the best. It leads him into very dark situations. But overall, again, there was funny moments. There was emotional beats that I just was not expecting. And I keep calling back to it, but it really caught me off guard. I was not expecting to enjoy this film so much. So let me go into a little bit of the pros and cons of Roofman. That way I can kind of shed a little bit more light as to why I enjoyed it so much, and maybe a couple of nitpicks that, if there are any, that I can kind of give out for Roofman. All right, first pro that I want to give out. You're going to think this is dumb. You're going to think it's ridiculous. But again, I was born in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. I used to go to Toys R Us a lot, especially around the Christmas time. So the fact that the majority of the film actually took place with Jeffrey Manchester living in a Toys R Us, that just seems so cool to me. So the fact that the production design was majority and everything that was filmed was majority in a Toys R Us, I thought that was so awesome. I know that you guys will think that it's ridiculous, but to me, I love that. The nostalgia of seeing a Toys R Us again. Like I mentioned, when I was a kid, I used to love, one of my favorite trips before Christmas was going to a Toys R Us, checking out stuff, and then putting that on my Christmas list. And so seeing Jeffrey, and Jeffrey played by Channing Tatum, going and staying there and finding ways to survive, eating M&Ms, and just using stuff around the Toys R Us to, keep himself at least a very clean way, and just finding clothes. It just felt so cool just seeing the Toys R Us store, the aisles, all the stuff that they would sell to customers, all that stuff. I really just I dug. It was again a feeling of nostalgia, a feeling of comfort that just brought a lot of joy to me. And then you also think, kind of going back to when you were a kid, I'm like, wow, it would have been so cool to actually live in a Toys R Us, just because it has all the stuff that kids really love. So that was my first pro, just the production design of the Toys R Us being really the main aspect and the main setting of this movie. Second pro for me of Roofman has got to be how funny this movie was. But it never overdid it. It had the right amount of humor within the movie, whether coming from Channing Tatum or some of the other characters. Like there's times where Lakeith Stanfield's character of Steve, who was one of Jeffrey's only friends, they were both in the military, and there's times that he would talk to him, calling him like the smartest, dumbest guy he knows. And so any kind of interaction was really funny. But apart from Steve's, funny dialogue, a lot of the humor also was just situational. Things that were going on around Jeffrey as he was staying in a Toys R Us, him trying to escape or find out that he can turn off the security system in the Toys R Us. So again, a lot of different types of, situations that Jeffrey was in was what made the movie funny. Peter Dinklage, his delivery in different lines within the movie was just incredible. He's always a great watch whenever he comes out in a show or a film. So again, a lot of funny stuff that ends up happening in this movie. And again, it's balanced really well with the emotion as well, that we'll talk about a little bit more in the spoiler side of this movie. Okay, then the third pro that I have for Roofman has got to be the way that this film sets up the beginning of the movie and had sets up the character, or really the real life person of Jeffrey Manchester. They immediately get you into his life, what it's like, how hard it is, and how hard he is trying to fight for the lives of his children. He just wants to support his children in any way he can. Although he is divorced with his first wife, he still cares for his children. He wants to give them the best gifts, best birthdays, and he's just trying to do the best he can with what he's given, even though, once again, he makes the wrong choices to the point where he gets arrested on his daughter's birthday. And I don't know, the way that they were able to set up and emotionally show you how Jeffrey is not a bad person, that connected with me. That made me immediately feel for Jeffrey, and it made me feel for, okay, no, I don't want this guy to lose. I don't want him to never be able to see his family and be stuck in prison. I want this guy to find a way to use his skills to his advantage. Did he end up doing that? Well, again, you're gonna have to watch the movie, and that way I don't spoil it for you. But I don't know, the way that they were able to just establish Jeffrey and show that this guy is not a bad guy. He is kind. Every time he robbed one of the McDonald's, he was always so nice and supportive of the McDonald's workers. He never tried to harm or kill anybody. All he tried to do was, hey, this is a transaction. I'm just trying to get money to support my family, and I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to call the police, and they will help you, and they will come immediately to this McDonald's. So he was always doing it in such a calculated way where his main goal was to just get the money and not harm anybody. So the way that, again, they were establishing that connection to make the audience feel very comfortable with Jeffrey, they nailed it in this movie. All right, cons for Roofman. Keep this nice and short. I really don't have any. Again, I'm not going to say that the movie was outstanding and perfect and something that's going to make my favorite films of all time. Could be timeless. You're going to have to wait a little bit later on in this podcast to find that answer. But in regards to nitpicks, I really didn't have any. There was nothing from a performance that I found very, jarring or just very distracting. There was never a joke that, was like, oh, okay, well, this just didn't land. And there was never anything that just felt so outlandish. Like everything felt believable. Everything just felt like, wow, I can't believe this is actually real. This is a true story. Now, maybe there's like common tropes, like the typical, the guy that's meeting somebody else and, they end up going out and eventually you're going to find out that, well, Jeffrey's not a good guy because he ends up having a relationship with Lee, who is played by Kirsten Dunst. You know that there's going to be a climax of something of a downfall, but, I'm not going to really put a negative on that. Again, I still enjoyed the entire aspect, even though I knew that it was coming. But again, no nitpicks on my side for Roofman. All right, let's go ahead now and move on to the next question, or really the first question that I have to ask everybody that's listening is, should you guys go check this movie out in theaters? My personal opinion, I would say yes. This is a fun time and fun and emotional time in the theater because I do think it has a message. It has something that I feel like is very relatable to anybody that watches this movie. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be a robber, you have to be a bad person, but it actually has an overall theme about how you should be with your loved ones. And so to me, I would highly recommend you guys go check this one out in theaters. If it's showing anywhere locally, go check it out. Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, both do a great job in their roles. Everybody really. I mean, Lakeith Stanfield, Peter Dinklage, there's Ben Mendelsohn I forgot to mention. I mean, he comes out in it. Jimmy Yang. I mean, there's so many different people that come out in it that have a little small role. It's not anything big, but they're a big highlight as well and just add to the humor of the movie. So again, my final thoughts are going to be definitely go check this one out in theaters. All right, everybody. That is all the non-spoiler discussion that I want to have with The Roofman. Let's now move into the spoiler section. Let's start talking about, is this movie actually timeless? What makes it timeless? Or what doesn't make it timeless if I don't think it's a movie I would want to rewatch? But before we get there, if you don't want to be spoiled about Roofman, go jump out of the video, jump out of the podcast, watch the movie, then come back. And like always, feel free to comment on YouTube or Spotify, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast, feel free to send me an email. That way we can interact and discuss our thoughts about Roofman. All right, hopefully that gives you enough time. Let's start spoiling this movie by answering the first question. Is Roofman a timeless movie? Now, timeless can mean anything for you guys. For me, Is this a movie that I can easily see myself putting on, rewatching? Or if I ended up buying physical media, is this something I would want to own? In my personal opinion, I'm going to say that Roofman is a timeless movie. I had such a great time, and even considering that it is based on a true story, I still would want to watch it again. And the biggest reason why I think I would want to consider this movie timeless is really the story of Jeffrey Manchester. And not only that, I know it's very general and very broad, but more so to the fact that I feel like the theme of this movie about Jeffrey Manchester is so relatable to everybody that just lives on this earth. There have been multiple times, especially in my life, but anybody listening, you may have encountered this either through yourself or through family and friends. There are certain relationships that we have with people that we love that sometimes you can't be there for them. You can't give them the type of effort, and so you feel like you have to purchase gifts for them. You have to give them money. You give them some type of physical or material thing, thinking that, oh, this is going to be sufficient. They'll love this, and it'll make up for the times that I wasn't there. And that's not the case. The case really is what loved ones really want is you. They want you to be there. Even if you don't have money, even if you don't have the things that you would want to buy them or would love to buy them, really the theme of this movie, Roofman, is just be there. Just be there for the ones you love. Be there for their parties. Be there for, any kind of moments that they're just looking for some comfort. And again, it doesn't have to always be material. Really just being in the moments and supporting them in anything that they want to do is sufficient for them to just love you. And so that's really what I got from Roofman, and I think why it connected with me so much because, like I mentioned, I feel like I've been in those kind of moments where I haven't been able to be with a person that I've been wanting to hang out with, or I haven't been spending a lot of time and wanting to prove that, hey, I still care about you, I still want to be in your life, and so you feel like buying a gift or giving them something material is going to be worth it. And at the end, it's not. And that's exactly what happens to Jeffrey in this movie. He tries to buy the love of Lee, buy the love of her daughters, and he tries to give them, games. He tries to show them, hey, I'll teach you how to drive. Let me buy you a car. He does all of this stuff with the money that he kind of stole through McDonald's and other stores. And at the end, he finally realizes when he gets caught. And so what ends up happening at the end of the movie is Jeffrey ends up getting caught. He gets turned in by Lee. And when he is behind bars, he finally realizes that, oh, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about me having to give my daughters these gifts or give these other daughters of Lee the gifts that they wanted. Instead, it was about me just being there and supporting them in their church, supporting them in different aspects of their lives, and just listening. And so that I thought was really impactful for me, and why I think it's a movie that I would want to continue rewatching. And also because of the fact that it is also a very funny and emotional movie. So this is the second reason why I think this movie is timeless is the way that they were able to balance the humor and the emotion. I thought was really well done. I kind of mentioned it in some of my pros, but there's so many hilarious moments. There's like a funny scene. I think probably one of the funnier moments of the movie. You have the moment where Jeffrey ends up meeting Lee for the first time. She goes to the church that Lee is from, and they end up going out, with a bunch of other people from the church. And then eventually, Lee and Jeffrey end up kind of talking one on one. And Lee, who's played by Kirsten Dunst, says like a funny thing where she goes like, "Well, I got two things to say to you. First thing, are you gay?" And then like it was just so random, and like she starts explaining to Jeffrey why she thought of that is, and she was like, "Well, you're very charming, you talk to a lot of women, you know a lot about women's shoes, and so I just wanted to know, I wanted to ask." And then Jeffrey, played by Channing Tatum, has to just kind of like, he's just so dumbfounded like why that was the first question, and it's like, okay, no, I'm not like, I just know that I grew up with like just knowing that kind of stuff. And then the second question was just Lee being very direct and like, "Would you go out with me?" And so that's kind of how the relationship starts. But that then leads to an even funnier situation when, Lee and Jeffrey, well, he actually ends up going as under the name of John when he meets Lee because, he's actually in the news for being the roofman. And so he has to go undercover as another name. And Lee and John end up going to a park just to go on a date. And, at one point, I think Jeffrey ends up taking off his shirt and, Lee says, "Oh man, you're in great shape." And then to continue off the joke of Lee thinking that Jeffrey was gay, you just see Jeffrey go, "Oh, thanks, girl." Just like a very different tone. And it was just hilarious. And so, again, I really love the fact that they had a lot of great moments, either funny dialogue or funny situations that just made the movie so funny. It's so relatable and just a good time. I was always entertained throughout. But again, what on the other side of it, how tragic and emotional this movie was, I also loved. Like I mentioned before, the way that they were able to set up Jeffrey's character at the beginning was just so well done because immediately from the first scene, you get to see a glimpse of his life, something very private. He has a birthday party for his daughter, and he gives her a set that he owned as a kid, and then you see his daughter's face. All her daughter wanted was a bike, and he didn't have the money to do that. He didn't have the money to give her that. And so when you see a year pass where he now has the money because he's been stealing from different McDonald's and he gives it to his daughter, he feels like, yes, this is finally my turning point. This is finally the time where I can actually give my daughter what she wants. And what ends up happening on her birthday? He ends up getting arrested. And it was so sad because her daughter was right there. Her daughter was watching Jeffrey run away from the cops, running away from all of his life, really, running away from his family. And at the point where the cops finally catch up to him and they start arresting him, his daughter's right there over the hill, just watching her father get arrested and watching what you would assume is her hero just in a terrible situation. So there was so many great aspects like that emotionally that just, I don't know, to me, I put myself in that situation. I'm like, oh man, how terrible would it be if my son or daughter saw me like that, saw me not in the best light. And again, how do you tell that to a child? Like, hey, I'm not a bad person. I just made bad choices. And so all those kind of aspects, the humor, the emotion, the way that they were able to just set up Jeffrey's character and make you feel for him. And also the themes of just how you should be with loved ones. It's not about material things. It's not about money. It's not about gifts. It's about just being there for them when they need you. So all that stuff is really why I really loved Roofman. But those are just my thoughts, guys. What about you? What did you think about Roofman? Did you enjoy the story of Jeffrey Manchester? Did you enjoy the aspect of Toys R Us being shown so many times? Let me know if you liked the movie as much as I did, or maybe some of the reasons why you didn't like it. Would like to also hear that as well. Also, before we go, wanted to also highlight that I thought this movie was so good that I'm also considering it to be probably one of the best based on a true story movies that I've seen. And so I started thinking, well, what are some of the other films that are based on true stories that were made into films? And some of the first ones that I thought of was Social Network. I started talking to my brother about this. He brought up Catch Me If You Can. You have Schindler's List, Hidden Figures, so many different movies that are based on true stories that have actually been really good or excellent. So I want to throw another question out to you guys. Apart from Roofman and it being timeless for you, what are some of the top 3 movies, let's say, that are based on true stories that you guys have enjoyed? Maybe there's some that I haven't even watched and considered. If there are, again, let me know in the comments, send me emails. Would love to know your guys' thoughts about movies based on true stories. All right, everybody, that is it for me rambling on about Roofman and stories based on reality. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 156 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode. That way we can discuss and talk about a new movie and decide if it is timeless after one viewing. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. I'll talk to you later.